Hey everybody, welcome to Talking About Birds, the only St. Louis Cardinals podcast that, like Steve and Matt's, are still trying for some reason. It's me, Benny Samorka, by myself today. Hey everybody, Nate is gone. He is flown off to the other side of the world. I think he's somewhere in Indonesia right now. He sent me a video of him looking at the ocean, and I don't know, maybe he had his shoes off. I think he was soaking his tootsies in the water and enjoying himself. So I'm by myself. I'm not by myself, actually. That was a bait and switch. I am joined by the PodFather, C70, Daniel Shoptaw. Thank you so much for joining me this week and replacing Nate.
Well, I mean, who can really replace Nate?
Really?
Well, I mean, there's a list, but
we were actually talking about the list of people right before we started recording.
Good to be here. I am always enjoy joining either you or Nate or both to talk about the Cardinals.
Well, thank you for joining. Thank you for tagging in and pinch hitting. We appreciate it. I have to ask, so it's been a while since you've been on the show. March 14th. Is that, are my notes correct? Is that really how long it's been?
That's probably about right. Y'all came over to mine after that, so we've talked. And, of course, we saw each other in St. Louis for the podcaster day. But it very well may have been.
And we talk almost every day to some degree about baseball. So, it doesn't feel like it. But I was shocked by that. March 14th was the last time that you've been on the show. So I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Dune in that time?
I have not seen Dune in that time.
Dune. Wow.
My son did. My son saw both parts.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I know they're on Max. I've got Max. I just haven't sat down to do that.
Yeah.
If I had known, if I really thought about it, I would have stayed up all night long and watched them before I got on the show tonight. But
we could have just talked about Dune instead of talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, which would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's what your audience is, but it can't, I think they'd be fine with it, given what's going on the field right now.
Just slowly morph into a sci-fi podcast as the Cardinals kind of just go away.
Yeah, I don't see any problems with that.
Yeah. Well, how's your summer been? How have you been post meeting Mosaic and all that? How's your life been?
Life has been good. Writing every once in a while, podcasting all the time, dealing with heat. I don't know that you understand what that is anymore since you're out there in Colorado, but
not like you guys. No, it is. It's different out here. All I have to do is go into the shade and I'm fine.
But yeah, school started here, so it's we start progressing to the end of the season.
Are you? So I know you're a sci-fi. Is your sci-fi fandom strictly Star Wars, or does it branch out more than that?
It's significantly Star Wars, obviously.
Right.
I have watched and know I can converse in a lot of the Star Trek.
Okay.
I have seen a lot of Stargate.
Okay.
Babylon 5. That's probably the range.
Okay.
I know bits and pieces of other things.
I was going to ask if you've seen the new Alien movie, but I'm going to assume maybe a no on that.
I'm not a big horror-ish type fan.
All right.
And
fair
so enough. That is, again, my son he went and saw it this weekend and seemed to enjoy it. But that is not exactly in my wheelhouse. Even though that.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I will say I saw it on Thursday before, the opening weekend or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I got a Alien Romulus green xenomorph margarita and sat down and watched the movie, and it was I really enjoyed it. I'm a big Alien guy, but I don't really blame you for that. It's kind of disgusting. Like the whole point of it is it's disgusting. So you have
I
to
thought
be
you were
like
going to say that you got the popcorn bucket. So
I had popcorn as well.
Yes.
And I also ordered chicken tenders, so went ham at the Alamo Draft House. It was great experience. And I'll tell you what, eating chicken tenders while watching aliens, like face huggers, latch onto people's faces and like impregnate them through their throat was not awesome. That was not a great combination. I will not recommend that.
Kind of wish you'd thought that out, huh?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It
I get that.
ruins your appetite a little bit. But that margarita, fantastic. I was having a good time. All right. Let's talk about the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll tarry no further.
We were having a fun, good time, too. What you doing this for?
Well, I'll also note that Daniel and I have been sitting on this call for a little bit, and I decided to screencast the end of the Cardinals game. We were recording on Tuesday night, so we just both together watched the Cardinals spoil a bases-loaded, one-out Paul Goldschmidt ninth inning against Devin Williams situation where it was strikeout, with Goldie and Gorman going down. So I think we're feeling particularly sour on the St. Louis Cardinals today. Not that I don't know if I felt that much different a couple hours ago, but that definitely put a taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I think if Goldie comes through there, you're at least upbeat for the night, right? I mean, you're not. It doesn't really change the complexion of things.
Right.
I mean, they're still, ridiculously far out in the division and well behind a lot of people in the wild card, and it doesn't change a lot. But at least, hey, you got to win against Brewers instead of just seeing them do what they've done for a significant period of time, which is, spend most of the game with no runs.
Right.
Somehow Matt Carpenter is your offensive hero of the night, and then you actually put together a rally and nothing comes out of it.
Put together against a very one of the better pitchers in the National League. I know he's not having the best year this year, but he's still Devin Williams. He still has that changeup. His fastball, I think, is underrated. He's great. The fact that they were finally able to put something together it's annoying that it took that long. It's annoying that they couldn't get on top of Frankie Montas. I don't think Frankie Montas is all that great. And it's annoying that Eric Fetty has kind of been a non-factor over, what is it, 4 starts now that we've seen? He's just been nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then to be fair, I mean, tonight, 3 runs over... Actually, did he only give up 2 runs over 5 or 6? I can't remember exactly.
I'll pull it up.
Look it up. But, it was still a situation where with a decent offense, he probably has a chance, right? He did keep them in the game. He has not been, except for like his first start, it feels like he's pitched reasonably well. He's not pitched to the level that he was pitching with the White Sox for sure. And you want to armchair psychoanalyze, which is obviously a dangerous thing to do, but you wonder if there was just a lot less pressure playing for a team that is so bad versus coming to in a team that at least expects you to be a big part of them making a comeback. Again, I don't know that. I think it also may just be adjustments and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's much to it, but yeah, I don't think if you had told anybody at the trade deadline that he had no wins in his first 4 outings with the Cardinals, that nobody would have expected that.
Right. So Fetty tonight, he went 5 2/3, gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks against 2 strikeouts. Obviously not amazing, but I agree. Kept them in the game, was not bad. And this is not a guy who is going to go out and strike out the Brewers 12 times, in 6 innings. He's just not that kind of pitcher. And then the game was ultimately blown by John King, my favorite pitcher, of course. So happy to have that. But yeah, I think that's an interesting thought. I'm sure that there is some aspect to that. I wonder. We never know the true ins and outs of like why did Eric Fetty sign there? Was it truly that the White Sox gave him the most money, or did he feel like he could kind of get acclimated into MLB? Probably get traded either this year or next year, and then kind of ease his way into. I mean, there's part of that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. We talked about it. I thought it was kind of weird that the White Sox were the only team to pony up. I mean, it was not a lot of money. I think 15 or 16 million over 2 years, which is nothing today.
Right.
So, I'm not disappointed in Fetty. I'm disappointed in the Cardinals for just I thought that was a good trade. Let's look at just that trade by itself. I like that trade. But I was on this podcast asking for Blake Snell and I just asking for really anybody that had a little more upside. And, it is what it is. And unfortunately, the Cardinals will probably miss the playoffs because they did a half measure, and that's just kind of the way it is.
It may be, but I also wonder, again, we've seen what this offense has been like. We have seen what the rest of the rotation is like. It's hard for me to think that they were just one pitcher away at the trade deadline. And if you go and get somebody at a higher level than Betty, you're giving up something, right? The Cardinals gave up Tommy Edman, and that's something, but it's not anything that's huge. When you've got Fetty for next year, it's kind of a wash, right? So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you give up, you go for Snell and you're giving up Quinn Matthews, you got to win this year, right? And that's, otherwise it just really blows up in your face.
Yeah, and maybe this, Mo and Co. were like, well, we're not going to win, so why would we do that? Let's make it look like we're trying. And it's just like, it's the most Cardinals 2024 season thing to happen where you trade. I think most people like the Tommy Edman trade, but you trade away your starting center fielder because you have this breakout performance from Michael Ciani. And almost incongruous with the trade, Ciani goes down, he hits the 10-day IL, and now you're stuck with Victor Scott, who I think we could all agree is just in the deep end. He's just not ready for big league pitching right now.
Yeah, it is pretty typical of Cardinals. But it also, you start wondering, the way they used Dylan Carlson, would he still be out there, right? Would they have found a way to, Tommy Pham might have been playing in center field, or Lars Nootbaar or something like that. It just, even though that would have been the most logical thing, and they might have done that, I don't know. But I think there's a real good argument that we'd be like, why is Dylan Carlson sitting on the bench? You see him go to Tampa Bay and have success, almost immediately. Which
139 OPS plus in Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, who didn't see that coming? But I agree. I don't. Ben Frederickson had a thing. I didn't read the article. Well, he put it out on Twitter today. Is like, at some point in time, don't you have to start wondering what it is that these guys are getting, even if the success doesn't last? We don't know that Dylan Carlson had to go a couple weeks. It doesn't mean it's going to last. But there's been enough of these guys go somewhere else and have success that don't you need to start looking at what that problem is and fixing it before you're just a minor league team for everybody else?
I agree. I do think that there is pressure for a Dylan Carlson type where he was this high-end draft pick. He was the number one prospect in the organization for years. He comes up in a weird year, all these expectations, and then it never really kept going right. He had 3 years of kind of just weird baseball, baseball that probably he's never experienced in his life. And then, of course, the crash with Jordan Walker, and then he goes to a team who is not competing this year, but has this great reputation of developing players, pitching and hitting players, and kind of letting players be them. It's a perfect storm. I agree, it didn't surprise me at all, and I won't be surprised at all if Dylan Carlson has a fantastic year next year. But it is frustrating, and it is hard not to think that the Cardinals messaging, whether it's at the top or somewhere in the middle, or it's Ollie, somewhere, it's hard to think that that's all going well, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we saw that. It feels like we saw that this week with Jordan Walker, right? Jordan Walker comes up, and as he's coming up, Mo is saying stuff like he's going to be here to play. He hates to see young players on the bench. And Ollie's saying he's a platoon bat and he's going to place against lefties, which we're not actually facing any lefties. So he's going to be off pinch hitting and things like that. And, I know Katie Wu put out tonight that there really wasn't the disconnect that it sounds like, but it's hard to know that, right? Because if there's not that disconnect, then why is Jordan Walker then not immediately sent back after a week, right? Matt Carpenter was ready to come back, but, they let go of Brandon Crawford. You could have just done that, right? You could have just let him go. I know that they wanted to get Luke and Baker up, and that we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it just feels like you didn't have to send him back. but it feels like Mo's saying, I'm sending him back so he can play because he's not playing up here like I thought he was going to.
It's insane. It's insane that he would. I feel like I'm being gaslit by John Mozeliak from 900 miles away. It is, you say that he's only going to face left-handed pitching, which is obviously the short side of the platoon. You bring him up. He starts couple games, 3 games, 4 games, maybe.
He played in 3, but I think one of those was he came in like the middle game or something because they were getting blown out.
And then you send him back down. Like, Mo can look at the schedule. Mo knows like the scheduled pitchers who are coming down the line. Also, he just knows how often a left-handed pitcher, like, that is the short side of the platoon. You're not going to get that many chances. And I don't really know, if you don't think Jordan Walker can hit right-handed pitching, what is he doing here? I think that should be the bread and butter of his game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have obvious splits. He's played every day at Memphis.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You know, for people that have been around a while, this still reminds us of the Colton Long, Mike Matheny situation, right?
Yeah.
That eventually Mo had to send Colton to Memphis just because Matheny wasn't playing him. They was playing Mark Ellis or whoever else. Eventually, obviously, Colton Wong came back up, took the job and stuff. But it just, you get hints of that here, too, which is surprising because Ollie and Mo, in theory, and in the common thinking about these guys are like 2 pieces of the same sandwich or something, that they should be on the same page constantly because Ollie's Mo's guy, or whatever the case. That's why they got rid of Mike Schilt, is because he wouldn't listen to Mo, and so they got Ollie in here, and he's just a puppet. And obviously that's not really the case, never has been, but I was just really surprised to see what appears to be, again, a disconnect. Now, maybe it wasn't, but you're right. If Mo's talking about him playing every day, he also should know that he wasn't going to get to play when there's no lefties coming up.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. They're starting Nootbaar against lefties most of the time. Yeah. They traded for Tommy Pham.
Right.
Pedro Pages has been hitting the ball pretty well. Obviously, Wilson Contreras can come in and mash lefties. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most frustrating part. Is it just really doesn't seem like there's a cohesive plan, and it feels like I have to imagine that Mo is sitting in his box. Well, ultimately, I think that Goldschmidt and Arenado are going to hit, and Gorman's going to hit, and it's just not happening. And we have 40 games left in the season, and we have to jump the Brewers by 11. Or, well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, right now, the Cardinals, who have just lost the game to the Brewers, my number is out of date. It's now they are 12 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers, who have been playing extremely well with the news of Christian Yelich going down for the rest of the season, which, this team has kind of annoyed me all year. They've just been really good, and it doesn't totally make sense to me. But I'm kind of looking at this, and I think I've been kind of hinting at this for a while. My opinion is the Cardinals are going to have to focus on the wild card. I think that the division is kind of running away from them. The way they came into tonight is evidence of that. And that means that they are going to have to chase down the Giants, the Mets, and then one of these teams that I think are really good, Atlanta, Arizona, and San Diego. And I guess I just want to hear your thoughts on, like, is that a reasonable thing to ask of this team? Do you have faith? Can they be the best team in baseball for 6 weeks like they were earlier this season? Can they find that? Or are you saying, we should pack our bags for October and go to the beach somewhere?
They're not doing it. I mean, I never want to say never, but they're not. I mean, you look at this, and we talked about it on Gateway last night. I asked David Jones, who was my co-host there, I asked him, what would you think is more likely for the Cardinals to finish just over 500 or for the Cardinals to finish in last place in the division. And I mean, because right now, they're like two games under 500. They're also about 2 or 3 games out of last place, and it really doesn't feel like, like right now. I think the Cubs are still playing. They could be tied with the Cardinals by the end of the night. It just doesn't. I just can't imagine this team that is struggling so much, that it really has only had that one good month, 6 weeks of the season. And then they're going to play the hardest part of their schedule, and they're going to, turn into the 2011 Cardinals. I don't see that. I mean, and maybe people have better rose-colored glasses than I do, but I can't imagine how that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine how it can happen. It just seems very unlikely, and I think I have some positive stats that I want to bring up. Because I knew that this conversation was going to be kind of negative because, well, why wouldn't it be?
Right.
But I mean, I do think that there are scenarios of Nootbaar actually getting hot, actually being an above average hitter, which I do think that he is, and he's capable of that. Siani coming back, giving you that defense that he has, and not being a absolutely horrible hitter. But I don't think the ship can turn around if 2 of the 3 of Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, and Paul Goldschmidt don't turn it on. I think it's impossible. It's hard for me to bet against 2 guys who I would argue should be in the Hall of Fame, especially with Nolan Arenado still being only 33. It's hard for me to imagine he's cooked, and he's not having he's having a not a Nolan Arenado season, but if he was anybody else, it's a pretty good. It's a fine year, is I guess what I mean to say. So I want to have hope. I've seen a 17-game winning streak relatively recently. I've seen teams turn around things that are more dramatic, but their playoff odds are under 3% right now. Whether you look at Baseball Reference or Fangraphs, so it's not good.
No, and I mean, you're asking for, again, and I agree with you if they were going to do that, but again, Goldschmidt hasn't done it all year long.
Yeah.
Arenado has hit better as the time has gone on. I saw somebody put up, I think it was his OPS for the April, May, June, July. It has continually increased.
Yes.
So I don't think Nolan's completely cooked, but you've got Gorman, and then you've got you got your bits and pieces. Wynn's obviously done well. Burleson's done well, although he struggles at times too. But you get those guys going, maybe you got some help. But then you've got to say, hey, are you going to get Miles Michaelis? What's Miles Michaelis going to look like? Are you going to wind up having a lot of games where you lose 7-6 because all of a sudden the offense is coming along, but the pitching staff is starting to fall apart? We've seen the bullpen be kind of hit and miss. There's just so many ifs.
Daniel, Steven Matz is coming back any day now.
And that's true. I mean, you cannot put a price on what Steven Matz brings to this team.
Yeah.
And Lance Lynn, too. I mean, they may have an abundance of starters. Not any good ones, but they'll have an abundance.
They are about to have like 6 number 4s on their roster very soon.
I mean, and we've seen Sonny Gray have some good, he pitched well against Kershaw.
Yeah.
And just took the loss, which that's going to happen. But, if we see more of that out of Sonny Gray, that helps. But, we've seen a lot of ugly games out of him too.
Yeah, I believe in Sonny, but there are some the cracks are showing. I will say there's also some evidence if you look at some expected stats and the FIP numbers and stuff like that, as though the defense is letting him down. And I don't think the defense has really been a problem. It might just be some batted ball luck, but it hasn't been as crisp for Sonny as I would like it to go. I want to ask you one more negative question. And then maybe we can try being a little more positive. We'll see. I guess how it goes. But I'm curious, what do you, if you have to look into your crystal ball, look into the future? Right now we have, like I said, I think it's like 40 some odd games remaining, or maybe just under that.
It's more like 35.
35. Oh God, it's just evaporating.
Yeah.
Does Oli Marmol finish the season as the St. Louis Cardinals manager? Yes or no? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he finishes as manager. In part because, in theory, like right now, they're still in the hunt. If you want to use my air quotes, but by the time they get to the point where they're going to wave the white flag on the season, it's not going to matter anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that, and you kind of, it may be something we want to talk about a little bit later, but we've talked about the possibilities, or maybe the expectation, that the front office may get a little bit of a turnover this winter. And I feel like, especially if Mo feels like he's going to step down, or if he's not going to be there next year, he's going to let the next guy take care of Ollie.
Yeah.
Right. Or let him, if he wants Ollie, great. If he wants his own guy, great. But he's going to leave that for him. So I would be really stunned if they went with that. I think by now it doesn't do any good, so they're just right out the string.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. I think that's the odds would be in favor of that.
Mm-hmm.
I could also see DeWitt kind of demanding it and asking for it and saying, get him out of here. And, just let Descalso run the ship for the last 20 games of the season or whatever it ends up being. But yeah, I mean, kind of to your point, we were talking about this again before we hopped on, or before we hit the red record button. I don't know why I noted that it was red, but it's red and it's staring at me in the face, mocking me. He's gonna gut it. I think it's gonna. The organization is gonna get gutted like a fish, ripped out, thrown into a bucket, and filleted and fried up later that night. I think it's gonna be. I think there are gonna be people whose names we don't even really know who are gonna get fired. I don't want it necessarily to happen, but it seems. I think this organization is stale, and I think that can be a huge problem. I'm a fan of the Rockies for some reason, and it's the stalest organization in baseball, and I think the number one thing they could do to fix themselves is to basically fire everybody and start new. I don't know if the Cardinals need 100% teardown, but it's easy for me to think that would bring about a positive change, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I think that it's very interesting to think about what could happen this winter. Because I think we talked ourselves into it last year, right? We said, okay, they were 71 and 91. Things are going to be different. They're going to clear out, and maybe they're going to fire their manager, or maybe they're going to do, Mo's going to move on, or et cetera, and nothing happened because they talked themselves into this. Oh, it's a one-time thing.
Yeah,
we'll be better next year. We'll get some pitching, and we'll be fine. And the fact is that if you look at the expected win-loss for this team based on run differential, it's basically the same as last year at this point.
It is so bad. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, a few days ago, it was exactly the same. And
yeah.
Maybe it's within a point here. Yeah. And so you can easily say that this team is this, what it was last year is what it is this year. They've just, gotten a little bit lucky. And I think it's much harder for you to, if you're in the front office, to say, we're just going to write this off. This is obviously some sort of systematic change. That being said, it is an organization that doesn't move quickly a lot of times. DeWitt did a lot of change when he fired Walt Jocketty and, promoted Mo to be the leader of the Lanau faction, if you will, that was in the front office. But that was the only, that's the one time. So it could happen again like that. I don't know. To some degree, I'm almost to the point of thinking that, it may be that Mo steps away. Maybe they bring in Chaim Bloom, and it's more of a gradual turnover than a bloodletting.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I guess the problem with my gutting the fish scenario is that when you do gut the fish, like there's nobody to like turn the lights on to run spring training there does need to be a process. So yeah, I'm probably being slightly over dramatic, but maybe it'll be a thing that happens in a couple of years rather than just. And I think you're right. I think Chaim Bloom is the most obvious. he's kind of already integrated into the environment and everything like that, it would make sense. But I guess we'll see. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about this winter, assuming the Cardinals don't make it. I do want to say they could. You know, that I'm trying to convince myself, and then I will say I have a Fangraphs page in front of me of the Cardinals pitching staff, and it's really hard to say that with a straight face. You know, our second best pitcher, you were just talking about him, not saying very nice things about him, but our second best pitcher, according to Fangraphs WAR, is Miles Michaelis, which that's probably all you really need to know. If you explain that to anyone who pays attention to the team, that's hellacious. That you couldn't be more mean. And, you know, Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn have showed up and mostly taken the ball, but they are on track to be under replacement level players. Kyle Gibson is on track to be under 2 WAR. Lance Lynn is on track to be well under 2 WAR. And you set the bar really, really low when your second best pitcher is a guy who might make or might produce league average production over the season. It's frightening.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had not looked at Gibson as much. I knew he had struggled lately, but you know, that's the complete difference, right? Gibson and Lynn may wind up with exactly the same numbers at the end of the year, but you're going to have a different impression because Gibson was so good there at the beginning and Lynn struggled for so long that I think, at least in my mind, that still carries over, right? That Gibson's still your best second pitcher, but the numbers don't bear that out anymore. And you're right. I mean, that's just, I mean, when you're kind of rooting for the Andre Palante start, I mean, that where does that take you? You know, I mean, after what we saw this winter, and again, we kind of knew some of that, but it's just frustrating to see the Cardinals who, you know, kind of jump on the cheapest, easiest. Oh, they wanted to be here. Yeah. Well, that's great. I'd love to be there too, but I don't think they're going to sign me.
I don't know. I think he'd be great. What would your position be?
Wow, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. That's something that doesn't. I'd say catcher, so I wouldn't have to move.
There you go.
But I don't think I could squat that long. So designated out if they've got one of those.
Pinch runner. I mean, we were talking about in the Birds Court how fast you are. You'd be great. Short burst.
I mean, yeah. Short burst is it? 2 steps off the bag and then we're done.
For what it's worth, I'm curious to hear your response to this. Essentially, according to Fangraphs WAR, Kyle Gibson, Ryan Helsley, Lance Lynn, and Andre Palante, obviously all in different innings limits, have essentially produced the same amount of production via Fangraphs WAR this season. They're all either 1 or 1.3, which is essentially the same number.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So let's go Palante, let's go Helsley, and everybody else kind of sucks. All right, I want to hit my couple of positive points, and then we can keep going in it. We already hinted at some of the Cardinals news. There's big news today, so I'll hurry up and get to that. But I wanted to be positive. I think you mentioned his name earlier. Mason Wynn has hit 6 home runs over the past month and is seemingly just getting better and better and more fun to watch. And I'm calling for the extension. Everything about him I love. I think he is fully proved himself. I think he looks great. He's increased his walk rate. He's increased his slug. The defense is getting better and better. I have no notes. Everything about his season has been amazing.
Yeah, I love Mason Wynn. I have as it going. I mean, even when he and Walker were coming up, as much as I expected Walker to be, the better overall player, I was still attaching myself to Mason Wynn. Yeah. And his spring training last year was incredible, and then to be able to come up this year and really, I think he's got the maturity. I think he's got the charisma. I think he's got everything. I'm like you. I was talking with Jake Wood on Meet Me Mutual this week, and that was kind of I'm not seriously calling for it, but if they were to do it, I think there's logic to that, to going ahead and locking him up and making him your guy, your face of the franchise to some degree. That being said, we also know that Dylan Carlson had a good rookie year and it didn't, didn't pan out. And I get why, Nolan Gorman's had a good years and then we see what he's doing now. I can see why you don't want to necessarily hitch your wagon to that. That on the other hand, Mason Wynn's contract probably wouldn't be the same level as a Walker or a Gorman or something, just because of the power that isn't there. So, I mean, I don't expect them to, especially since he's still got 2 years of team control before he even gets to arbitration. But if they wanted to set some sort of tone that some things were different, locking him up would be one way to do that.
And I think I agree, or I understand where you're coming, but what I really like about him and what I think makes him more of a sure thing than a Walker, really anybody in the Cardinals organization right now, is that he is a top 20 fielder in baseball. And I expect him to get better. I think he relies on just pure like speed and arm power and everything like that. But I think he'll get smarter. He'll get better. And I think, an elite level shortstop is just, even if he dips down to a below league average hitter, I can keep running him out there. And I know he's going to at least take a decent at bat. He'll probably steal me some bases, and he's super fun to watch at short. So that's kind of where I'm coming from there.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to sound hyperbole, and it probably is somewhat, but he's kind of this generation's Ozzie Smith. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's going to have the career that Ozzie had, but he brings the presence. He's playing shortstop. He's bringing the defense. He is, and he's better than Ozzie was as a hitter early in his career, for sure.
That's
right?
for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, game is different and game has changed, but I think that there's a chance for the Cardinals in marketing and everything to just tie on to this guy. And he can be that guy that young kids start looking up to and want to follow around and want to be Mason Wynn when they're playing ball.
Hell, I want to be Mason Wynn. Yeah, I'm sold. Absolutely. But yeah, I agree. And all the other things you're talking about, he's got the great smile, the hair, he's just fun. He's just great. So yeah, I
and then
agree.
and we talked about it at y'all did, especially at the Negro League game in Alabama. He's got that history.
Yeah.
Knowing of the Negro Leagues and all that kind of stuff. He has the respect. He takes 0 because he can't take 1. Right. It's the closest thing he could get to Ozzie's number. He's got that kind of thing too, where it's not just on the field, but he's got a presence of the history of the game as well.
He gets it. He gets the whole package. I agree. Another young player, and for some, I can never get this out of my head, but the first time I heard this guy's name, we had Kyle on, I think it was last year, and he said, hey, be ready in spring training. The Cardinals are going to shove Pedro Pages down your throat. And they kind of did, and it's been happening for a little while now, and I kind of like it. I'm kind of curious to hear your thought, but I think that he's a pretty good game caller. I think that he's a fine catch and thrower. He's been hitting a little bit. He's got a 125 WRC plus over the last 14 games, and a little more power. It's not. I don't think he's going to be a guy that hits 20 home runs or anything like that. But he's got a little more thump to his game than I originally expected, and I'm kind of liking it. I'm not saying let's extend Pedro Pages like I was talking about with Mason Wynn, but I think he's been another good surprise this year, and I think he's only been better and better the more time he's gotten with the staff, with Major League pitching, everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I am still very surprised at how often he catches and Wilson DHs. It's almost like a timeshare thing right now.
Yeah.
More than I would have expected. Because I think Pages is a great backup catcher.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it will be fine. It's very interesting to see how he has supplanted Ivan Herrera in this whole thing.
That is insane to me. I have millions of thoughts on that, but do you think, I don't actually think this, but do you think the Cardinals regret signing Wilson Contreras? Because they kind of act like it, or they regret that he's a catcher. Maybe, I don't know.
I think maybe,
right?
I mean, the whole weird stuff last year.
So weird.
And then I mean, I will say at the time, and I said it on the show and wrote about it, I'm sure, that it didn't make a lot of sense to me because I thought Ivan Herrera could be a fine, first string catcher, and Ender Kisner at the time could be a fine backup, and you had people like Pages coming up.
Yeah.
So I didn't think they necessarily needed to do that. They went out and did it, and I thought, okay, well, fine. But they seemed like they wanted to, okay, we've done this, but we want to do this too. And, because, I mean, it would have made plenty of sense if you are looking at a Blake Snell at the trade line to trade Ivan Herrera or something like that.
Could not agree with you more. Yeah.
And instead he's sitting around in Memphis, which he probably has nothing left to learn down there, right? And it's not like, Pages has played somewhat better defense, but I don't know that's been significantly better in the running game. Nobody's catching anybody on the running game for the most part, except Contreras did tonight, I guess. But, it's, Yadier Molina's not walking through that door. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see how they've used all their catchers.
So, and it's funny that you bring that up to the defensive part. So I'm just looking at Fangraphs WAR, and the reason that I like looking at Fangraphs WAR for catchers is because they actually take into account framing, which is obviously a big part of catching. And while Pedro Pages, Pedro Pages has participated in 47 games, and Ivan Herrera 54 games. So let's say that sample size is about 1-to-1, as close as we can get for right now. Obviously, Ivan Herrera was a better hitter, and he put up positive defensive WAR, and Pedro Pages currently negative defensive WAR. Now, it's just a fraction. It is nothing to freak out about. It is a small sample size. But the fact of the matter is that even Herrera was a better hitter and a better catcher and a better defensive catcher based on the numbers that we have available. Obviously, the running thing, but like you said, nobody's catching runners except for Wilson Contreras, honestly, who has the best arm, of all three of them. It is confusing.
Well, and then you look at, Jimmy Crooks is doing quite well at AA.
Yep.
He's going to be probably at Memphis next year. You've got 2 or 3 other guys that are in the pipeline that drafted one, in the 4th round this year. That's probably, obviously a few years away, but catcher is not a situation where they've had difficulties in. And
is it Bernal? Bernal is kind of streaking up, and people are starting to talk about him and what he could be. Yeah, it is funny. And what? Maybe should Wilson take over first base? Maybe if Goldie walks, maybe it makes sense to move him there, and then you can have Pages and Ivan Herrera, or move one of them. I don't know, but it does. Well, it really just goes back to the conversation we were having at the beginning. It's like, what the hell are we doing? Do they have a plan?
Yeah, and as you watch them flail around, it's very difficult to say that they do, right? And it's kind of over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking on Twitter today. Somebody said that this was like this bringing up of Wilson or of Jordan Walker and sending him back down was like the dumbest thing that they've done. And I was like, well, last year they DFA Taylor Motter only to, as soon as he clears waivers, sign him, put him back on the 40-man, and bring him back up to the major leagues. It's like, what in the world are we doing? I was surprised. I think there's reasons for it, but I was surprised when Riley O'Brien came off the injured list and they optioned him to Memphis.
Yeah.
I would have expected him, with what he has, to come into this bullpen. And I understand there's, trying to make sure there's reasons, but there's still, somebody said, they're throwing, I think it was Ben Humphreys on Cardinals Off Day recently, said they're kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that really, that really feels like what they're doing right now, that they don't, even after last year, they still don't know how to lose and what to do when things are going wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was Rich in the Birds Court today said that poor communication is the downfall of any organization. It's really... I'm sure there is more. I'm sure there's always nuance. There's always more than we know. But my goodness, it feels like the either the tail is wagging the dog or something. But all right, we're deep into this episode, and we haven't even actually mentioned the big news that happened today. We kind of alluded to it earlier, actually. I guess. Let me just make sure I say it out loud. The Cardinals reinstate Matt Carpenter before tonight's game. Option Jordan Walker. We definitely talked about that. And then the Cardinals have released Brandon Crawford and brought up Luken Baker. I don't know if there's too much to add. I think we've hit this mostly, other than the fact that I think John Mozeliak is listening to this episode or this show. He brought up Luken Baker like I've been asking for. There's reporting from Derek Gould about the inability for Luken Baker to hit the curveball. Has that changed over the past week? I literally tweeted at Derek Gould, why no Luken Baker? He referenced this, and then a week later, actually 4 or 5 days later, he comes up. So what changed? Is this just more of the same, more not having a plan? Is this more spaghetti at the wall? Probably. And then, of course, I can't even remember if we mentioned this on the show or not, but when the game is on the line tonight, the Tuesday night game, relying on Nolan Gorman rather than having Luken Baker come in was a confusing move to me. Sorry, I just feel like I word vomited all over you, but your thoughts, Daniel.
I mean, I do think that it just reiterates that point that we were talking about, that they just don't really know what to do. Because you're right. There's no reason why if that Luken Baker is now better than he was a week ago.
Right.
There's just nothing. I mean, he was hitting bombs and striking out, and all his pluses and minuses were there last week, and they could have easily brought him up then instead of Jordan Walker and let Walker continue to hit in Memphis and be ready to come up later on if they wanted to. They didn't. They did it now. So I do wonder if, Rob Raines wrote a piece about Luken Baker, and he kind of had that quote of, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I just wonder if the Cardinals decided that, they needed to reward that a little bit. Did
he talk himself into a promotion via the press? Like, that's also crazy.
I mean, I don't know that he did, but I don't know that he didn't. Yeah. I also think that it's very, very possible that this is a subtle white flag move.
Oh, yeah.
John Mozeliak said something of the fact of there's a lot of demands on the roster, and we need to see what we have. And it kind of makes me, before the season wraps up, I think he even added, and to that makes me sound like he wants to see if he's going to give Luken Baker a time up here, and then they need to see if he can do it. And so if he can take over first base next year, or if they're going to let him go or whatever, he's kind of hit the point where he's got to either play or get sent off.
Yeah, he's 27 and a half years old now, and not really ever been given a chance. So, I mean, I guess I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, and then, of course, on the flip side of that is that, well, why in the heck did you send Jordan Walker down? Why didn't you just leave him up here and let him play every day? And I think, I have no idea. But it does feel like to me like they're trying to shuffle a few pieces, and this was more about evaluation than about contention.
Yeah. Do you think... Well, okay. Two things I want to say. First off, the problem with this move is Jordan Walker is a super high-profile young player. So him being bounced means that he is just a personal annoyance for him, is that he has to answer a bunch of questions from dummies like you and I, like about why he's getting bounced up and down and how's it going, or what's life like back in the big leagues. Okay, now what is it like being back in AAA? And you're kind of just putting him through the ringer, which I cannot imagine is a particularly fun thing to do. And then another point that I want to make is, like, is the Cardinals clubhouse so fragile that they could not release Brandon Crawford before Matt Carpenter came back? I mean, I know he was like with the team for the most part, but the bringing Carp back and getting rid of Crawford on the same day is kind of a funny move to me. And it could just be like, that's how the paperwork turned out, and we wanted to bring Baker up, and Carpenter was ready, so that's just the way it worked out, and it could be a coincidence, but it just feels kind of funny to me, and we're just ragging on the front office at this point, but it's just more weirdness, I guess.
It is a little bit. I mean, especially when they spent so much time talking about veteran leadership in this offseason, but I wonder. Part of me wonders if Brandon Crawford didn't signal to them that he was ready.
I'm done.
Yeah, that I mean, as somebody pointed out, he had like 80 at bats all year long.
Is that true? Wow. Yeah.
And he may have been, obviously he wasn't playing much, and Mason Wynn was going to play every day, and I'm sure he enjoyed being around the clubhouse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it may have been where it's like, hey, I don't think this team's going anywhere, and I can just go sit at home,
Spend time with my kids. Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he wanted to let them see. They got to see me play a little bit more longer. I played almost a whole season, but let me get out of the way, and you can see somebody else. And it may have been that was some sort of mutual thing because they are trying to start to evaluate some other players. But and you can't do that with Matt Carpenter, obviously. So
right.
I think it was interesting.
Yeah. He. So you were almost dead on. Yeah. He had 80 plate appearances this season. Appeared in 28 games and had an OPS plus of 53. Cardinals legend, we'll never forget him. It was
Red
great.
Jacket's coming. I know.
Oh, it was great while it lasted. I'll never forget. All right, moving down, more Cardinals news. We referenced them at some point in the episode already, but Steven Matz appears to be very close to rejoining the Cardinals. He has thrown almost 20 innings in between AA and AAA. He's only given up 2 earned runs. His walks are down. His strikeouts are looking nice. We were just talking all kinds of shit about the arms and the rotation. Does Steven Matz join your rotation when he comes back?
I mean, wow. It's not like it's going to make much difference, right?
Right?
But, we have seen success with him in the bullpen, but, I don't, Matthew Liberatore kind of has that long man type spot down. I mean, if the Cardinals are willing to go to the 6-man rotation like they're talking about, I mean, maybe, I guess, might as well. I can't say that I'm worked up either way, I guess, about it. But I had assumed that he would come back as a reliever. But, I mean, given what we've seen, if he can pitch well, might as well put him in the rotation.
They're stretching him out. I'm not saying that I agree with this move, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's going into the starting rotation.
Yeah.
As long as he's healthy, I think they're going to give him one more start at AAA. They're going to take an eyeball, the eyeball test. He looks better than probably any of the pitchers that we've mentioned whose name is not Sonny Gray or Andre Palante. Maybe Lance Lynn's rehab takes a little bit longer or who knows exactly the machinations, but I think he's going to be a starting pitcher. And I just think that's how it's going to go. And we're going to like it. And, that's just the way it is. You're going to take your mats and suck it down and deal with it, I guess.
It felt wrong.
Yeah. It does it feels bad, doesn't it?
I think he was at 90 pitches last outing. I think you're right. And and again, and that also goes a little bit to evaluation, right? Because if he can't pitch well in the starting rotation, then they know next year he's going to be in the bullpen.
Right.
And so they can start planning for that. If he looks like he can be that pitcher that they think that he could be, that they've thought since they signed him, then, maybe they're planning for him in the rotation, and that changes how they approach the offseason as well.
Yeah. Maybe Mo's in the end game. All right. Last thing I want to hit before we hit the break is that Michael Ciani has resumed swinging after he was sidelined from the oblique strain. It looks like he should be coming back relatively soon. But hopefully we'll have more information next week. But the sooner he comes back, I think we can all agree the better. Obviously, one of the better Cardinals in the first half of baseball or the first half of the season.
We talked about it on one of the shows, but I think, including tonight, that they are like 4-10 since Ciani went down or something of that nature. So
it feels
not
that
like
way.
You can, and it's not that you can point completely to him, but it does seem like there might have been, a little bit of glue holding things together.
Yeah. I mean, we're ragging on the pitching staff a lot this episode, and the best, second best, whatever center fielder in baseball really, really goes a long way when you have a crappy pitching staff. So that wouldn't be shocking to me. All right. Well, let's go to the ad break, and then we can talk about some the series previews coming up next week and get into a little bit of league news. First, I want to say shout out to all of our Patreon folks out there, our patrons, our bird squirters, everybody out there. If you would like to be a bird squirter or hop into Patreon, you can find it on patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Starts at $2 a month. You can come chat with me, chat with Daniel, chat with Rich, chat with everybody in there. We're having a great time, folks. We're being pretty doom and gloom today. We had a really fun chat today about how unbelievably bad the Cardinals have been at pinch hitting this year, which was kind of fun. I think, Daniel, you called out that there's only been 2 extra base hits.
Now 3.
Now 3. Oh, yeah.
Carpenter pitch in tonight.
There we go. The wave is starting to crash. We're starting to get some pinch hitting, but the Cardinals have been the second worst pinch hitting team in baseball this year, which I feel like you probably could have just guessed that. That's how it's felt. But anyways, come on, join the Bird Squad. If you can't do that, or if you don't want to do that, which I do not blame you at all, it would be really nice if you rate and reviewed our podcast so that other people can find it, other freaks, other Cardinal fans can come check out our episodes and I don't know, doom listen and doom watch these games with us, I guess, until the season's over. But we'll keep going into the off season. Like I was saying earlier, I think we're gonna have plenty to talk about this winter. So Mo's really filling up our content bucket. Outside of that, you can follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We're on Instagram at Talking About Birds. You can listen to the show on Spotify. You can listen to the show on YouTube if you prefer. You can go look at us on TikTok. You can email us at talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. Find all of that crap at talkingaboutbirds.com. And you can call us and leave a voicemail or send a text message to 848-48-BIRDS. Again, that is 48. Oh, God. I hate doing this whole thing by myself. You can call us or text us at 848-48-BIRDS. That's 848-482-4737. God, that's a mouthful. Daniel, please take this time to plug all your shows, your Twitter, your Substack, everything you got going on.
You know, if y'all were smart, you just record that and drop it in. You know, but that may be asking a lot.
But you know, each one's like a snowflake, though. You know, I'm sure some people skip over it, but you know, each one's a little special, a little different.
And we can always hold our breath to see if you get the phone number right, so it's okay. Twitter is C70, which is where you're going to find links to pretty much anything. Substack, right at that every once in a while. It's at cardinals70.substack.com. And you can subscribe and get it dropped in your inbox whenever I do get around to writing. And you got Meet Me at Musial and Gateway to Baseball Heaven. Musial's usually a nowadays Saturday morning record. And Gateway is a Sunday night often. Sometimes they shift by a day or so. But those links are always at CF70 as well. So follow me. You'll see everything.
Yeah. If you're not following Daniel, I don't know how the hell you found us, but check him out. It's just better. It's a better show, better shows, better content. Yeah. And I'll just take this time to thank you again for joining in and subbing in for Nate. All right, let's get into the series preview. I do want to note that, again, we are recording this on Tuesday night. Before the Cardinals have already lost one of the 3 games against the Brewers. So hopefully tomorrow and Thursday go better than tonight went. But as we were talking about before, it might not matter. Cardinals should probably be focused on the wild card, which isn't much easier. But anyways, after this series is over, the Cardinals are going to stick around fighting these Midwestern teams, and they are going to go to Minnesota for 3 games. Minnesota is they're better than the Cardinals. They have a great offense. They kind of up and down. 1 through 9, all of their hitters are great. They have average. They have power. They have great defenders. Their pitching is lacking, but I would take any one of their starting pitchers and place them in the top of our rotation, just behind Sonny Gray. They're a solid team. It's not going to be easy. Daniel, I think you said earlier that the rest of the season it's going to be really tough, and this is just more of that.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the standings right now, they're tied with the Royals for second, and they're just 2.5 behind Cleveland. So they're in the mix of that, and you're not going to catch. Sometimes you can catch some of these good teams in September, you can catch them off because they're kind of already there. They've already got their playoff spot kind of locked up. That's not going to happen here.
No.
And it's going to be a tough appearance, I would think.
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm looking forward to watching a good baseball team on one side of it. That'll be fun. It's kind of like being a Rockies fan, you know. I think I'm going to go see the Orioles play the Rockies this weekend, and
Sure.
I get to go see the Orioles, so that's really good for me.
Yeah.
So after that, like I said, 3-game series in Minnesota. The Cardinals come back home, and Mike Schilt and the Padres come to town. And I think I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, but I think the Padres are. I don't want to give them team of destiny, but I think that they are playing really, really good baseball at the right time. I think that their team has got some really interesting young players. Jackson Merrill has been having a probable rookie of the year type season, unless Paul Skeens. I guess it's what flavor do you like? Do you like the center fielder that keeps hitting clutch extra base hits, or the Paul Skeens who's, the second coming?
Yeah.
But just everything about this team. Jurickson Profar having a career year. Jake Cronenworth kind of coming back into his own. And they're getting better performances out of Xander Bogaerts. Manny Machado starting to come along. I mean, just those names, lots of stars. And the Cardinals are likely going to draw Dylan Cease, Joe Musgrove, and Michael King, their 3 best pitchers who have also been pitching really well. I mean, there's not much else for me to add. This team is really good. They're playing really good. And they're coming in and they, we'll see, I guess, if they have the Cardinals number or not.
Can we talk just a little bit about how weird this schedule is? The Cardinals...
In what way?
Well, the Cardinals just are, after this Brewer series, will have finished like a 6-game homestand. They go to Minnesota for 3, come back home, play the Padres for 4, right?
Yeah.
And then they go off to New York. It's like, and that's not the only, I feel like there's been another time where they've just like had a home stretch, go off for a weekend, and come back for another home stretch. It's coming up here in September. They'll have a home series which has the Mariners and then the Reds. Then they go to Toronto for 3, come home for the Pittsburgh and Cleveland. That ends their home series. It's just, I know it's part of this, balanced schedule, which I'm not a big fan of, but it just seems weird to have like a weekend getaway in the middle of a fairly long homestand.
Now that you said, the season has been weird. The streak of games that they just went through. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is all just a result of the balanced schedule, right? They kind of have to force a square peg into a round hole. And again, it's just not what the Cardinals need to fight through right now. So, good luck, boys. I guess.
Yep.
All right, let's move into league news. Not too much to talk about. I think we obviously we hit all the Cardinals news. I did want to note that Rich Hill, a.k.a. Dick Mountain, has come back to the major leagues. He is re-signed with the Red Sox. This is another guy. Honestly, I think the Cardinals should have looked at him. I don't think he's going to be great, but the Cardinals need semi-effective major league pitching. I think that he set a record. I think this is the 8th time. It's the 8th or 9th time that he's signed with the same team, which is a major league record. So good for you, Dick Mountain. We're happy to have you back.
It's always there's always seems like once a generation there's that guy, right, that plays forever and bounces around or whatever. And Edwin Jackson or Mike Morgan have done in the past, and Hill's not as much because he keeps going back to the Red Sox. But yeah, it's really weird to think that he was signed by the Cardinals and played a spring training and never actually made the team.
And back then he was like, maybe not a flamethrower, but he was like a stuff guy. It was mid-90s fastball with the same breaking ball that he has today. But it is that feels like it was a lifetime ago at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. In other news, I wanted to call out that I think we already talked about this, actually. Christian Yelich will be out for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. We already talked about that. I won't hit it again. And that's all I got for league news. Daniel.
Well, before we get out of the league news,
yeah.
It's not league news necessarily. But I do want to talk. I see.
Nate never contributes to this segment, so I think you're already impressing me.
I mean, it's Nate.
Yeah.
Well, just
Piece
put
of
on
shit,
the list.
yeah.
But anyway, we'll see what kind of Indonesian mess he gets into, and
He might not come back. You might just be on the show forever now.
I mean, we may have to,
he keeps doing these trips to these exotic places. At one point, he's not going to come back. The guy can't really, do much. So
I mean, it's either that or he's going to get caught, and we're going to have to, like the Secretary of State's going to have to get involved, and it's just going to be a mess. No, I'm fascinated. I think I told Nate this at one point in time recently. I am so fascinated watching results of the White Sox games.
Yes.
Now, because I continue to be amazed that I think there's a really, really strong possibility that they're going to have the worst record in modern baseball. They're going to probably finish with less than 40 wins. They're going to. It's amazing to me how this continues to happen, because they're bad. I don't know that they're like historically bad, but everything's gone wrong for them.
Well, yeah, I think we've talked about this a little bit on the show, but it's like Luis Robert Jr. is good. Gavin Sheets should be good. Andrew Vaughn should be good. They used to have some pitching. Eloy Jimenez should have been good. I think you talk about a culture problem. We're like kind of ragging on the Cardinals a little bit. I think this is a ownership down culture nightmare. I think that they don't even know how to fix themselves. And then I also think they have a handful of not very good players.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, of course, and like I say, they can have a lead in the 6th inning and then the bullpen gives up 7 or something of that nature, or, they'll throw a good game, but they'll lose 2-1 or something. It's like they never catch a break, and I'm here for it. It's like get the popcorn out. It's like the car wreck you can't turn away from. It's amazing.
I'm just looking at their stats right now. They have the lowest amount of runs scored in baseball and the highest ERA in baseball. That is they have the lowest OPS. They have the lowest slug. They have not the highest strikeouts, but they have the lowest walks. I mean, it's just everything is going wrong. And they are eliminated. They are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs right now, which I don't know if I actually noticed that happened, but that's is that a record?
Yes.
Is that the earliest that's ever happened?
It is. It is I think not only in the wild card era, but in the divisional era, it is the earliest, because they got eliminated, I guess, yesterday.
Wow.
It's fascinating. It's something.
43 games back of the Cleveland Guardians.
And yet, the last time they won a series on the road was when they went to St. Louis in May.
I mean, they have 30 wins. How did that happen? Another interesting point I want to bring up. There was a Fangraphs article last week that was talking about if this NL Central or the AL Central teams didn't play the White Sox, like what the standings would look like. And the Royals, who are in second place, and they've had a really nice, surprising season, and currently they're playoff bound, and I'm kind of rooting for that. I think that's fun. But if they just deleted all the games that they played against the White Sox, they would be a sub 500 team.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
that's how baseball go, I guess. I don't know what
you go 11-2 against somebody or whatever they've probably done. It makes a difference. It's crazy,
wild. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for contributing to our league news section. Again, unlike Nate, never ever has done that. I'm sure he's done that like once, which he'll remind me of when he gets back. But
most likely,
I can't remember it, so that's what really matters. And Daniel, I think you may have a game for us.
I do have a game.
Or for me?
For you, yes, because it's not going to be much fun because I'm looking at the answers. Great. I sent this article send it to Nate to play as a game because I knew it would drive you crazy. And then when I got asked, I said, well, I'll just take it back and then make it my own. There was an article on USA Today. And
I already know I'm gonna hate this. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And I think Nate would call this Who Charted. It was by Gabe Lax, It looks like it's French. Lacqueus.
Guarantee you I hate Gabe, whoever.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
I can feel it.
And his article is about, let's see how it's exactly phrased. He is ranking MLB jersey advertisements.
Wow. I hate the nature of this. Like just even the exercise is something I don't like.
It says whose patch is least offensive.
Okay.
Now I'm going to make this a 2-part game because I was fascinated to know, reading this article, there are 7 teams that do not have an arm patch. Would you care to guess who those 7 teams are?
So I'll try. I know the Brewers don't because I was just watching them and I noticed that and it made me mad.
No, they have one.
They do?
Yeah.
Damn it. Wait, who were it? Oh, that is frustrating.
At least this article says they do.
Okay. It was a team was it the Reds then or was it the Dodgers?
Nope.
I'll say the Dodgers then because
they have one.
They do?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I know. I act like it's such a big problem, and now I can't even remember who has them or not. Okay, let me use my little tiny brain. So I think, oh God, the Yankees definitely have it. Yeah. I think Boston has it. I think Tampa Bay weirdly does not, and you think they would because they're so money hungry. But I'm going to say Tampa Bay.
That is one of them.
Okay.
Yes.
I also, man. I want to say Baltimore, but I think that's wrong, so I'm not going to say that. The Royals obviously have the stupid QT patch, which on their blue jersey, the red on the blue jersey, it looks so bad. I hate it.
Yeah.
Do the White Sox? Who would want to put their name on the White? I'm going to say the White Sox don't have one.
That is correct. That's 2 of them.
All right, I'm happy with that. Okay. Detroit, they probably have like GM or something like that. Houston, I think, has one. Seattle, I don't think Seattle has one. I'm going to say Seattle.
There's another one. There's 3 of them.
Okay. Texas, I believe, does. Oakland might not. The Angels may. I'm going to kind of use the same rationale. Who the hell would want to advertise on the Oakland A's jerseys? Let's go A's.
And there you go. There's 4.
4. Okay. All right. Philly, I know, has one. I think. Oh, and then the Braves have the Quikrete one, which is particularly offensive. The yellow Quikrete on their arm. Like, what are we doing here? The Mets, they had that big story about they got the wrong color patch and then changed it, so they definitely have one. The Nationals might not have one. I'm going to say the Washington Nationals.
There's 5.
Okay.
2 more.
All right. I'm doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. Miami. I'm just going down the list, trying to rack my brain, as you can probably tell. I think Miami does, but man, I really can't remember. Brewers, I already got that one wrong. Cardinals obviously have one. The Cubbies do. Right? Uh-oh. Cubbies might be one of those teams. Shit. Cubbies?
No, the Cubs have one.
Okay. I know Cincy has one. I know Pittsburgh has one. We just said Dodgers have one.
Look, I'll narrow it down for you. I think the 2 that are left, one's a National League team, one's an American League team.
Oh, I missed an American League team. Okay. I'm going to go... Wait, did my Colorado... I don't think the Colorado Rockies have one. Rockies.
I was wondering if you were going to get around to the Rockies. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't have one. Which is unlike them.
Obviously a huge problem for you.
Yeah. I do have a Rockies jersey for whatever it's worth. Shout out Charlie Blockman. I think that was a Christmas gift. Okay, so it's an American League team. I don't feel great about this. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Guardians.
No, but you're in the right division.
Yeah.
It is the Minnesota Twins.
Minnesota Twins. Damn.
So, you have most and decent rationale. So that part we'll go with.
I could have done better, but I could have done worse. Maybe is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. Yeah.
So let us take the top 5. And I guess the least offensive,
according to this dumbass.
According to this guy, who I really couldn't figure out his rationale when I read the article. So, good luck with this.
Okay. Well, it makes me kind of want to go like the opposite of my feelings because I'm sure that this person is a fool. So I kind of want to say Atlanta first because that's my least favorite one. I'm gonna go Atlanta Quick Creek. Give it to me.
No, Atlanta is. Man, where is Atlanta on this? This I should have written this down a little bit better instead of scrolling it back up. But Atlanta is Atlanta is 20.
Okay.
So which means he really hates it.
Okay.
The iconic yellow bag simply reminds the viewer that they're probably ditching a home repair or improvement project to watch a frivolous sporting event.
All right. Well, that's good. Let's see. I mean, I could see him liking the Cardinals just because it's like it could be worse. It is just red and white. And I should be unbiased because I'm trying to win a game. So I'm going to say the Cardinals are in that top 5.
Cardinals are number 11.
Damn. Okay.
And he didn't seem to give much thought to it because basically he just quotes out of the press release. So,
Okay, cool. That again, I love this guy. I'm glad that he has a job. That makes sense, and he deserves it. The Yankees one is bad, but it kind of blends in. Yeah, I guess I'll just go with my gut. I'm going to say Yankees. It kind of blends in.
The Yankees is, according to this guy, the most offensive one. In part because they have one, even though they're supposedly so great that they can't have like Connect jerseys and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And also that you would think that they could procure a top shelf national brand for this deal instead of Star Insurance, which is what they have. So.
Yeah, how much are we really making on these sleeve patches? Like
they make $25 million annually.
Holy shit! Really?
That's what it says. Because he says,
God.
like everyone else, they simply have a price, and that is reportedly $25 million annually.
Oh, the Yankees price.
Insurance.
That's not everybody's
the Yankees.
price.
No, that's the Yankees price.
Yeah, because you think it would be like Pepsi or Macintosh or something like.
Right.
That's a lot of money. Okay. Man. Trying to think who is inoffensive. I can't really think of the Giants, so I want to say the Giants, which that seems, if I can't remember what it looks like, that feels like a good thing.
That is a reasonable thought process. However, the Giants are number 19.
Oh my God.
It's Chevrolet. It looks like a great marriage. Baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie are the iconic brand of General Motors. In reality, it's a result of Bay Area tech brain run amok. It's easy to forget that the Giants slapped Chevy on their sleeve after one failed season with Cruise. So apparently they're kind of like bashing them for having gone with one that blew up on them. But like I said, I don't know.
I don't understand how he's referencing Chevrolet with big tech. That is...
Yeah, it's
okay. This guy should retire.
Yep.
God, this game is impossible.
Let's give you one more strike, and then I'll tell you what they are.
All right. Well, I guess because this guy's an idiot, and I hate him so very much, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals because they have my second least favorite one, and I don't know. This guy's unreliable and a fool. So, yeah, we'll go with that. Kansas City Royals, quick trip. Give it to me.
Kansas City Royals, number 3.
Oh, my God.
A godsend for highway warriors. You wonder how many lives Quick Trips has saved captivating motorists for the long slog across Kansas.
So, it's completely arbitrary.
I agree. It really is. It really is.
Is this article written by AI? It feels like it was written by ChatGPT.
I mean, maybe it lacks humanity, and that's why it's going with. I don't know. All right, you got that one. You got one more strike.
I do. Okay. So I cannot think of it off the top of my head, but I feel like the Astros have a very Houston-y. It's not NASA, but I feel like they have a thing that really makes sense with the city. I cannot think of it off the top of my head, so I'm going to go Houston Astros.
Houston is 16.
Damn it.
It's Occidental Petroleum.
Oh, never mind. Wow.
Yeah, it's Texas
Yeah,
and it's
and
oil,
it says Oxy.
so-
That's why I remember it. It says
Yeah.
Oxy, and I always think to myself, OxyContin. It's like, there's no way they're they're sponsored by OxyContin. But
I mean, we hate the Astros, but I think that's going a little too far.
Yeah.
All right, top 5. We'll start at number 5.
Yeah.
Was Boston Red Sox with Mass Mutual.
Okay, sure,
'Cause it
gorgeous.
is,
Everyone loves that.
Yeah. It's at least a nominal regional tie. Cincinnati Reds with Kroger.
Okay.
Looks like
That's
Kroger says that they're getting
fine.
$5 million annually.
See, that is pitiful to me.
Yeah. We said Kansas City at 3. Number 2 is Detroit Tigers with Meyer.
He likes
And
grocery stores and convenience stores.
Apparently so. And then the number 1 is the Pittsburgh Pirates and Sheetz.
Sheet.
If nothing else, America is loosely blinded by a series of full-service gas stations / convenient mart / fast food conglomerates, and nothing says Western Pennsylvania quite like Sheetz.
I think that this article was written by Big Convenience Store. This is I don't even know what a Sheetz is, but that is just total bullcrap. That is
It is
insane to me.
Fascinating article. And because if you want to read,
if you could send me
through-
the author's contact information, that would be great.
I'll drop you this so you can read it and watch your head explode.
Thank you.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
All right. Well, thank you for torturing me and again replacing Nate with something even better, something that made me even madder somehow. Somehow. That was infuriating. Okay. All right. Let's wrap the show up. Daniel, I want to say thank you again at C70, at Cardinals 70. All of your great work. Thank you for hopping on the show with me. Thank you for being the best to us, to Nate and I. I just really appreciate you hopping on here and keeping the show afloat. Nate, wherever you may be, good luck or whatever. Text me, dog. Talk to you later. Daniel, anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, just thanks for having me. I always enjoy getting with y'all, and it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thanks, everybody, and I guess let's go Cardinals. Good luck, guys. Right.
No. I thought that was the opening for me, and
I'm
we're
gonna
on
bring
fire tonight.
I'm gonna edit that in.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Here we can get back into it.
Okay, go ahead. I'll follow your lead.